And welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show, and happy 2023. Let's all give glory to this year to be the best that we've ever wanted it to be. So it is obviously January 1st, 2023, Sunday. And I wanted to read you guys something to explain why things have not quite gone as planned. You have to understand when security instruments, that's about the broadest term I can use for this, i.e. foreign currency, treasury notes, treasury bonds, etc., etc., etc. A lot of times when those leave the country, there's some kind of corruption going on, money laundering, that, but, a good bit of them are. That's why they're trying to crypto deliberately for that. So, a lot of people are, what's going on with Iraq? What's going on with Iraq? What's going on with Iraq? How come Iraq won't RV? Why won't they exchange their currency? Their people are suffering. The poor are getting poorer. The corrupt are getting more corrupt, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is partly why, and I'm going to read you this excerpt out of Modern Money Mechanics, which is published by the Chicago Federal Reserve Bank. And as you know, or you may not know, the Federal Reserve banking system in the United States has zero affiliation or association. Well, it does have an affiliation with the United States government. It is an independently owned and operated cartel of banking families that go back historically: the Harrimans, the Rothschilds, DuPonts, Morgans, Warburgs, even the Bush family. They got in through the Harrimans. They married into it. I told y'all they do this all the time. Marry into these families, keep it in the family. Y'all should know that by now. So anyway, Federal Reserve, which was established in 1913, planned 1911 on Jekyll Island, Georgia. Y'all should read that book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, by Mr. Griffin, G. Edward Griffin. Great book. You want to cut your teeth on the Federal Reserve and how how fiat currency works, the monopoly scheme. You should read that book. So anyway, you can get Modern Money Mechanics. You can get a PDF online. They probably have some audio books out there. I ordered my book either from Amazon or Abe Books, one or the other. So here's what we got. Changes in foreign-related factors. And that's the title of this specific segment in Modern Money Mechanics. This is on page 28. And I actually had to blow this up so I could actually read it. The Federal Reserve has engaged in foreign currency operations for its own account since 1962. In addition, it acts as the agent for foreign currency transactions of the U.S. Treasury. And since the 50s, has executed transactions for customers such as foreign central banks. Perhaps the most publicized type of foreign currency transaction undertaken by the Federal Reserve is intervention in the foreign exchange markets. Intervention, however, is only one of several foreign-related transactions that have the potential for increasing or decreasing reserves of banks, thereby affecting money and credit growth. Y'all got that right? That's just the first paragraph. I got a bunch more. Several foreign-related transactions and their effects on U.S. bank reserves are described in the next few pages. Included are some, but not all, of the types of transactions used. The key point to remember, however, is that the Federal Reserve routinely offsets any undesired change in U.S. bank reserves resulting from foreign-related transactions. As a result, such transactions do not affect money and credit growth in the United States. Foreign intervention for Federal Reserve's own account. All right, now I hope y'all pay attention to that, because this is for the Federal Reserve's own account. Okay, this isn't for the benefit of the United States, who they are lending money. It's for the Federal Reserve, for those guys. When the Federal Reserve intervenes in foreign exchange markets to sell dollars for its own account, it acquires foreign currency, assets, and reserves of U.S. banks. It acquires foreign currency, assets, and reserves of U.S. banks initially rise. In contrast, when the Fed intervenes to buy dollars for its own account, it uses foreign currency assets to pay for the dollars purchased, and reserves of the U.S. banks initially fall. Consider the example where the Federal Reserve intervenes in the foreign exchange markets to sell $100 US dollars for its own account. In this transaction, the Federal Reserve buys a foreign currency denominated deposit of the U.S. bank held at a foreign commercial bank, and pays for this foreign currency deposit by crediting $100 to the U.S. bank held at a foreign bank. And pays for this foreign currency deposit by crediting $100 to the U.S. bank's reserve account at the Fed. The Federal Reserve deposits the foreign currency proceeds in its account at a foreign central bank, and this transaction clears the foreign bank's reserves at the foreign central bank. The foreign bank's reserves at the foreign central bank decline. There's an illustration that it shows. Initially, then, the Fed's intervention sale of dollars, in this example, leads to an increase in Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies, and an increase in reserves of U.S. banks. Sorry for my stop and start reading. As we proceed through downtown Houston, it's like a roller coaster, up and down, twists and turns. Suppose instead that the Federal Reserve intervenes in the foreign exchange markets to buy $100 of US dollars in the foreign exchange markets. Oops, let me start that over. I just hit traffic. All right. Suppose instead that the Federal Reserve intervenes in the foreign exchange markets to buy $100 of US dollars, again for its own account. The The Federal Reserve purchases a dollar-denominated deposit of a foreign bank. Sorry, an accident. Federal Reserve purchases a dollar-denominated deposit of a foreign bank held at a U.S. bank and pays for this dollar deposit by drawing on its foreign currency deposit at a foreign central bank. The Federal Reserve might have to sell some of its foreign currency investments to build up its deposits at the foreign central bank, but would not affect U.S. bank reserves. As the Federal Reserve's account at the foreign central bank is charged, the foreign bank's reserves at the foreign central bank increase. In turn, the dollar deposit of the foreign bank. Turn my page. Via a $100 charge to its reserve account at the Federal Reserve, as an illustration. Initially, then, the Fed's intervention purchase of dollars in this example leads to a decrease in the Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies and a decrease in reserves of U.S. banks. As noted earlier, the Federal Reserve offsets or sterilizes any undesired change in U.S. bank reserves stemming from foreign exchange intervention, sales, or purchases of dollars. For example, Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies rose dramatically in 1989, in part due to significant U.S. intervention sales of dollars. See chart on this page. Total reserves of U.S. banks, however, declined slightly in 1989 as open market operations were used to sterilize the initial intervention-induced increase in reserves. So what you're seeing right there is how the Federal Reserve Bank, because of its enormity, has this, almost like a whack-a-mole sensibility that, when it sees a currency inching up on the dollar, it can reach there with its, mighty mallet and, pound down that bowl. I.e. the Iraq trying to revalue its currency and, drastically increase the value of its dinar over the dollar. In so much that if the United States, in my opinion, continue to go where they're going without any monetary checks and balances, and a runaway Congress and an executive administration, that it could possibly cause the dollar to hyperinflate. And I think that's what all these other countries, especially the ones who've already joined BRICS, are they're terrified of. Last thing they want to do is import and export oil and gas using a how can you not say it's a deliberately hyperinflated currency? I mean, we just give money away. Every time Congress meets, they're just giving money away, sending it out overseas. It's going away. That money doesn't come back. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's very little ROI on that. So let me get back into this. Monthly revaluation of foreign currency assets. I told you this was good. Another set of accounting transactions that affects the Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies is the monthly revaluation of such assets. Alright, so they revalue it at the end of every month. Days prior to the end of the month, the Fed's foreign currency assets are increased if their market value has appreciated or decreased if their value has depreciated. The offsetting accounting entry on the Fed's balance sheet is to the, quote, exchange translation account, unquote, included in, quote, other Federal Reserve liabilities, unquote. These changes in the Fed's balance sheet do not alter bank reserves directly. However, since the Federal Reserve turns over its net earnings to the Treasury each week, the revaluation affects the amount of the Fed's payment to the Treasury, which in turn influences TL calls and bank reserves. See explanation, and it has a bunch of footnotes here. So, I think these are first set. The dollar deposit of the foreign bank at the U.S. bank declines as the U.S. bank transfers ownership of the dollars to the Federal Reserve currencies that were warehoused in 1909. The Treasury of the ESF acquires foreign currency assets as a result of transactions such as intervention sales of dollars or sales of U.S. government securities denominated in foreign currencies. When the Federal Reserve warehouses foreign currencies for the Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies increase, as do Treasury deposits at the Fed. As these deposits are spent, reserves of U.S. banks rise. In contrast, the Treasury likely will have to increase the size of TT&L calls, a transaction that drains reserves, when it repurchases warehoused foreign currencies from the Federal Reserve. In 1991, $2.5 billion of warehoused foreign currencies were repurchased. The repurchase transaction is reflected on the Fed's balance sheet as it declines in both Treasury deposits at the Federal Reserve and Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies. Transactions for foreign customers. Many foreign central banks and governments maintain deposits at the Federal Reserve to facilitate dollar-denominated transactions. These foreign deposits on the liability side of the Fed's balance sheet typically are held at minimal levels that vary from week to week. For example, foreign deposits at the Federal Reserve averaged only $237 million in 1991, ranging from $178 million to $319 million on a weekly average basis. Changes in foreign deposits are small because foreign customers, quote, manage, unquote, their Federal Reserve to desired levels daily by buying and selling U.S. government securities. The extent of these foreign customer, quote, cash management, unquote, transactions is reflected in part by large and frequent changes in marketable U.S. government securities held in custody by the Federal Reserve for foreign customers. See chart. The net effect of foreign customers' cash management transactions usually leave U.S. bank reserves unchanged. So basically, they're balancing the book, offsetting from dollars to whatever foreign currencies they have. And they try to keep their assets over in the Federal Reserve Bank at a minimal level, enough for cash flow. That's basically, currency, cash flow, get it? So that's really all they're looking for is, if something comes due, we've got the money to cover it. And because we're a small country, we don't need that much money, but, the larger the country, I would presume more money that would entail to remain on deposit to offset those books on a daily basis without having to resort to a buy, selling, or trading to keep the fund flow balanced. Managing foreign deposits through sales of securities. Foreign customers of Federal Reserve make dollar-denominated payments, including those for intervention, sales of dollars by foreign central banks, by drawing down their deposits at the Federal Reserve. As these funds are deposited in U.S. banks and cleared, reserves of U.S. banks rise. See illustration. However, if payments from their accounts at the Federal Reserve lower balances to below desired levels, foreign customers will replenish their Federal Reserve deposits by selling U.S. government securities. Acting as their agent, the Federal Reserve usually executes foreign customer sell orders in the market. So basically they have power of attorney-in-fact privileges to act on behalf of the foreign entity to do financial transactions to keep the books balanced. Yeah. Form 56, appoint that fiduciary. It's possible. Let's see. As buyers pay for the securities by drawing down deposits at U.S. banks, reserves of U.S. banks fall and offset the increase in reserves from the disbursement transactions. The net effect is to leave U.S. banks reserves unchanged when U.S. government securities of foreign customers are sold in the market. So they play that balancing act, when they're, selling all these securities and how they're selling them and who they're selling them to and when these coupons are due and dividends and all that crap. Occasionally, however, the Federal Reserve executes foreign customers' sell orders with the system's account. When this is done, the rise in reserves from the foreign customers' disbursement of funds remains in place. See illustrations. The Federal Reserve might choose to execute sell orders with the system's account is desired for domestic policy reasons. I don't know if that's U.S. domestic policy or the foreign entities' domestic policy. And last page. Managing foreign deposits through purchases of securities. Foreign customers of the Federal Reserve also receive a variety of dollar-denominated payments, including proceeds from intervention purchases of dollars by foreign central banks that are drawn on U.S. banks. As these funds are credited to foreign deposits at the Federal Reserve of U.S. banks decline. But if receipts of dollar-denominated payments raise their deposits at the Federal Reserve to levels higher than desired, foreign customers will buy U.S. government securities. The net effect generally is to leave U.S. bank reserves unchanged when the U.S. government securities are purchased in the market. Using the swap network. Occasionally, foreign central banks acquire dollar deposits by activating the, quote, swap, unquote, network, which consists of reciprocal short-term credit arrangements between the Federal Reserve and certain foreign central banks. When a foreign central bank draws on its swap line at the Federal Reserve, it immediately obtains a dollar deposit at the Fed in exchange for foreign currencies and agrees to reserve the exchange sometime in the future. Wow. Wow. Okay. On the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, activation of the swap network is reflected as an increase in the Federal Reserve Bank assets denominated in foreign currencies and the increase in the liability category, quote, foreign deposits, unquote. When the swap line is repaid, both of these accounts decline. Reserves of U.S. banks will rise when the foreign central bank spends its dollar proceeds from the swap drawing. See illustrations. In contrast, reserves of U.S. banks will fall as the foreign central bank rebuilds its deposits at the Federal Reserve in order to repay a swap drawing. The accounting entries and impact on U.S. bank reserves are the same if the Federal Reserve uses a swap network to borrow and repay foreign currencies. However, the Federal Reserve has not activated the swap network in recent years, and this book has been published for quite a while, and that's the last of that particular segment of modern money mechanics regarding foreign currencies and revaluation, and how the Federal Reserve has such a major role in the economics of the world's currency. Leave it at that. So that's general enough so you can understand that. So I hope that gave you an understanding. I wish I could repeat that. I wish I could have, done a little better with that. But anyway, I want to give that to you guys so you can kind of wrap your head around, what's going on. That these other countries are trying to get this petrodollar, and that's what the whole thing is. The Fed is like, I don't know if y'all remember, man, but I think it was the Looney Tunes, but that little small that he always dressed up like a baby. He always had a cigar in his mouth. He always had a gun, and they're not going to go down, quietly. They're going to go down kicking, screaming, shooting, spitting, scratching, screaming, cussing. Yeah, they're going to do everything they can because they have to continue the Ponzi scheme, the grand monopoly game that they're playing. That's all they're doing. So anyway, Happy New Year. Hope y'all made it home safe and unhungover. I know I'm not. I'm sober. So thank you for hanging out with me, man. I appreciate y'all watching. Look forward to a new year. We have Trust Class 101 coming up on the 7th and 8th. We have a VCR class on the 5th. We have Trust 201 coming up on the 19th. We have Trust 101 coming up again on the, I want to say the 21st and 22nd, or the 22nd and 23rd of January. And I'll be putting some more dates in there. As far as the Fearless Floyd Show itself on YouTube and Telegram, the format is changing. I will start lining up daily guests Some of them will be regulars, some of them will be interchanging from day to day, week to week, month to month, whatever that looks like. Depending on their availability and subject matter that we're going to talk about, we are going to attempt to gather a wide variety of topics and what I consider experts in their field to educate you guys, man, to break y'all off. You know, I know some really, really, really smart people, so hopefully I can put them all together under one roof. Y'all can come hang out. We can learn something, learn how to live a healthier life, higher spiritual life, more private, hey, you know, get what was promised to us. The pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's what we're after. That's what I'm after. So, thanks for hanging out with me on my drive, my little travel, as I should rephrase. Breaking you off, modern money mechanics, changes in foreign-related factors and how they offset their books by intervening in foreign currency exchanges. So just imagine if the world's reserve currency, which is, held by every country in the world, and then some, that kind of power to be able to throw at an issue, say like some country who wants to reevaluate their currency against the dollar and no longer sell their oil. And I think Iraq is, the fourth or fifth largest proven oil reserves. I think second in the Middle East. So anyway, they don't want to sell their oil anymore in dollars. They want gold and other currencies that have more value, especially like rubles. Rubles are backed by gold. Why wouldn't you want to sell your oil, your assets, your commodity for something of value, something that doesn't have the potential to hyperinflate down the road? So that's kind of what these other countries are hedging on. And this is what's causing the delay. It's the Federal Reserve. It's not the United States government. It's not the Iraqi government. It's not the Central Bank of Iraq. It's the Federal Reserve cartel. They're dragging their feet. They don't want to let go. Because once they let go, it's a domino effect. And just imagine a line of people, like at a bus stop, all holding their handbags, and some guy comes by on a car with his arm out and took everybody's bags. That's kind of what's getting ready to happen. All these countries are going by and taking everything back from the central bank cartel. So y'all cross y'all fingers. Supposedly tomorrow's the magic day. I don't ride that roller coaster. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's just another day. So, let's say our prayers and hope for the best and wait for our contact information. And with that, y'all have a blessed day. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope y'all learned something. And I'll see you when I see you.